Hey guys, it's Ahmed from Sanctum Squad. I'm here to bring you guys a post-alliance insight, White Forest deck profile. And I want to discuss more about this deck because I do feel like the content for this deck revolves around people's like personal opinions and builds, and all the builds seem to be different. But I think there's a reason for that, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think this deck is unsolved. I think this deck is solved to a degree. But I think this is one of those decks that is very unique in the sense that it just doesn't have a set way of playing it, in a sense that it's very reactive and it's very proactive as well. I think the deck has a very, very high ceiling. Its counters are quite prominent though in the format. But I kind of want to share this build, and like I did with the Mitsurugi Fire King analogy, I want this to be like a theory video. So I want you guys to use the comments and discuss and see where I am with this theory, and I hope it helps you guys build your versions of this deck. But I'm going to talk more about this as we go along. We'll start off with the main deck, and I think it's pretty obvious that you have to play 3 of the LZ. LZ is insane if it's paired with a spell or trap. There is frustrating times where you open it without a spell or trap, but I'm sure you can find your way into a spell or trap at some point. We do play the 1 LZ Azamina. This helps us bridge into the Azamina and Simple Spoils plays, but you only need 1. I will argue that this is definitely a one-off because you don't really... opening this as an alone thing doesn't really do anything. It has to be paired with other stuff. And this is searchable so many different ways. It's got Azamina in its name. It's got White Forest in its name. It doesn't need to be played at more than 1. We're not playing the Estella. Estella is a very, very good card. I just think to be more consistent and to be relying on your starters more, now that we have more starters, I think it was worth cutting. If you were to play Estella, I don't think it's incorrect. I think it's fine if you want to play it, but it's that risk sort of factor. But yeah, we've got the 3 Sylvies. This is the only 1 card starter prior Alliance Insight, but we'll get to the other one in a moment. And this is paired with the one of the Rusia. Rusia is a good extender. Sometimes it's the one that you kind of want to open alongside your starters just so as a form of extension, but you don't want more than 1 of it. So the same sort of pattern, 3-1 over here and 3-1 over here as well. So that's 8 White Forest monsters. And this is the debatable card that a lot of people may be thinking, well, it's a 1 of, it's a 2 of, it's a 3 of. I started off by thinking this was a 3 of, then I decided it was a 1 of, then I was like playing it at 2, and then all of a sudden I was like, what am I on about? Jake and I were discussing this. It's the only card that gives you a 1 card starter and actually gives you the material on board for your spell and trap sends. It locks you out of the extra deck with dark monsters, but that's not a problem. If you're really fussed about like summoning Azamina monsters, you can play Azamina Debtors. I think a Debtors is a good card. I'm not playing it, but Debtors can like, you can set it and then like you can fuse in your opponent's turn instead, and then the next turn you can banish to add a Simple Spoils card from grave. I don't think that's a bad thing to do at all, but I do think playing this at 3 isn't the end of the world, because at the end of the day it is a spell. If you don't want to use it, you can send it. You can also add it back to hand with Diabell. But I do believe that this is a 3 of. Jake was trying to even convince me to play Terraforming. But for now I'm playing just this. And the other White Forest cards is the Tails and the Simple Spoils of the White Forest. Now, before we move on to the Simple Spoils package and the Azamina stuff, the concept of playing Tails at more than 1, I understand. And this is the thing, like, this is the kind of thing we're getting into. Like, people's opinions about this deck is based on how they see or how they believe their fortune is. Like, obviously, maths is prominent when it comes to building a deck, but also, like, I don't want to start thinking about, like, the heart of the cards and all that. And, like, you should, like, believe in, like, the spiritual element that you will have more of a chance at. Now, forget all of that stuff. But I do believe that's what causes people to, like, modify their decks in a certain way sometimes, especially with a deck that has a ceiling that is so complex in certain hands that every time I've played a game of with White Forest, I've always considered going back and seeing if I could win in those instances. And more often than not, the trajectory that you take, and if you go back on it, you actually realize that you could have won. And this is how complex this deck is. Like, you need to have a bit of insight on like what your opponent could have. And if you are testing and your opponent lets you like take things back in like your testing groups, I honestly recommend it with decks like, I recommend it generally because that's how we learn. But this is a deck that if you take things back and you find the more optimal line and you keep doing those iterations, a lot of the times this deck can actually win in really tight situations. I think you just have to be smart about it, and this is why I believe that this deck has a strong ceiling. Simple Spoils package. Sorry, I lost what I was talking about then. 1 Witch, 3 Wanted, 1 Deception, and 1 Hallowed Azamina. Now, I understand why people are bumping this up now because having more Diabell names matters because of the Diabell package. But I'd rather play 3 of the spell just because it's actually a card that like synergizes with everything else. I actually cut this down to 2 temporarily, but I needed to increase like the engine count. Wanted by itself with a discard doesn't actually get you to something significant in terms of board wise, but it's still pretty decent. It's also one of the ways of playing into draw on some instances. But I think this package is fine. I don't play the debtors, I still just play this. You only need 1 of this. 3 of this, 2 of this is fine, but I'm going with the 3 because it's a discard outlet. And also, if you get drawled, for example, you can just chain this and you can just get more value. This is also able to set this from the deck. And I think it's very, 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 very important that like when you are summoning this, you already know the line that you're going for, whether you're going for this, whether you're going for this, whether you're going for this. It does make a difference. Like, you shouldn't be summoning Witch if you don't know what you are doing with it, unless you're just trying to use it for a body. But even then, what you set off it tends to come up a lot in the following turns, in the next few like phases of the same turn. But yeah, this is the Wanted package, and then we're playing the Diabell package. These cards are insane. These cards are the game changers. This is what increases the ceiling of the deck, in my opinion, paired with the spell on the trap. So you send a spell to summon this, that sends this, and then this adds this, and then this adds you this. As you can say, this is a very drawable deck, but it's not impossible to play around. This is summoned from hand or grave by banishing 1 spell, 1 trap. 1 spell, 1 trap. And typically it's these 2. And when you banish these 2, this triggers making every Diabell monster, including this one, but we'll get back to her in a bit, gain 500 attack and defense. So, yeah. This package is, in my opinion, has boosted the ceiling of the deck a lot. This protects all monsters you control when you control another Diabell, and if you have another Diabell on the field, well, even if you don't, quick effect, pay half your life, target a card, destroy it, and if you control another Diabell, you can summon a Synchro tuner from the deck, from your extra deck, which I think is insane. And then we go to the non-engine, and this is where it gets a bit spicy. During testing, I think I played against all the big, I've tested this deck, playing friends and also playing even myself on Edo. And I went through about 5 to 10 iterations of every single meta deck that exists right now. And so I played Malice, I played Mitsurugi Raizeel, I played Pure Mitsurugi, I played against Fire King, I played against, so about like at least 5 games against all of them. And what I needed to figure out was what are the most optimal hand traps or non-engine that we can play, because this deck, you want to get going, you want to be able to stop your opponent and just make that board as if you went first. And also you kind of, if you are going first, you kind of want to like kind of survive as well. So that we had the obvious 2 because they're spells, you can discard them with all your stuff, Call by the Grave and Talents. These are require no explanation. And then we move on to something quite interesting. I played, and I am playing at the moment, 2 Sales Ban. it's weird because you don't expect them to have draw. So if you open this game 1 and you're going first, if you look at your hand and you think, okay, I'm only going to lose to draw, okay, activate, declare draw. If you think you're only going to lose to Nibiru, activate, declare Nibiru. Or you can hold it in hand, and it's a board breaker next turn. You can call Detonator. Detonator can't activate its effects at all. And it cuts you off, but that doesn't really matter. So yeah, I think Salesman is really, really good. And again, it's a spell, so you can discard it with LZ, with some of your synchros, with the new White Witch. Diabell's the White Witch. So yeah. Not 3 because I don't want to like flood the deck. For the hand traps, we play 3 Fualos, 3 Ash, and we play the 3 Imperm. These are the 3 ofs. I think these are in everyone's deck. Flexible because it's a spell and trap, and it's like a negate, a monster negate. Very useful. Early on in combos, Ash is Ash, stops Fualos as well. Fualos is Fualos, it can turn in turns. I think these require no explanation. And then we move on to the interesting part. We play 1 Veiler because it's searchable, even in your opponent's turn. We play 1 draw. The reason for this is because I am siding cross out. I don't want to main multiple copies of this because I think against Malice, if you're playing against a good Malice player, I don't think this is good. Against Mitsurugi Ryzeal, this is good, but it's only going to stall your turn. I've always had this theory about Droll. Like, Droll is good against Mitsurugi and Ryzeal, which is now like one of the best, if not like competing to be the best deck at the moment. And Ryzeal and Mitsurugi, like, if you can't capitalize after you draw them, you're basically just stalling your loss. So I think, like, as good as this is, if you can't capitalize on it, then there's no point. And also, do you really want to be seeing this against Malice? So I only play the 1 because it is a cross-out target for myself or for yourselves when you're playing this deck, because you don't really want to, like, you want to be able to play around Droll if you can, but if you can't, the cross-out, that's no. And if you see this, you may as well use it. The other synergy that these two have is that they're both spellcasters, so they work with Tails. If you're really struggling, you can normal summon and activate Tails because you control a spellcaster or illusion, because these are both spellcasters. And then for the final 2 spots, I really believe that this card is perfect for this format. Every deck in the format right now utilizes some form of cards coming back from grave, cards being banished. This stops March Hare, this stops GWC, this stops the new Allied Code Talker, this stops Blue Eyes stuff, this stops the Mirror Match stuff, this stops Fiendsmith stuff, it stops, you name it. Like, this stops everything. Do I regret telling people this? I think a lot of people will figure this out. I wanted this to be the surprise element to whichever regional I go to. But you know what? Sharing is caring. I do think Bell is insane. If you are playing Impulse in your decks, that's one of the unfortunates of not being able to play this. But I do think this card is really good. And I think it rewards smart players, similar to how Ghost Ogre does. It stops the Mitsurugi stuff as well. I didn't mention that. So if the last thing on the chain is like Amino, Mirakumo, to summon back, blow up the board, you can just Bell it. Stops prayers. There you are. Could this be bumped up to 3? Maybe. But yeah, that totals up around, I think, 17 non-engine, I believe, and 23 engine. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, so that's 17. So yeah, that's the main deck. That's a solid 40. I don't mind the concept of this deck being bumped up to 42, 44, if you are putting smart cards in there. One of the things I was doing in testing is I was playing 1 Fiendsmith Engraver, just so when you get trolled, if you can put up the bodies, you can go Moon into, because you can take out some cards from your extra deck to make up space, so you can end on Desiree. with the 2 negates, which is better than nothing under draw. So they start off on a 5-card hand and they have to deal with the Desiree. But I ended up taking it out, and I just like my non-engine a bit better than playing that. So let's get on to the synchros on the extra deck. We play 1 Diabells, or Diabell. We play 1 Recilia, or whatever it is, and we play 1 of the Silvera. These are non-negotiable. You play these no matter what. If you're not playing these, you're not playing White Forest. It's as simple as Book of Eclipse, once per turn, double piercing, adds Veiler. If you summon this in your opponent's turn, you summon it in your turn, you can also add Veiler as follow-up as well. This card is broken, this card is busted. And it's like, they're not just simple, straightforward effects, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, this deck rewards that sort of foresight of how you want to plan winning your turn. They all do intricate, interesting things, and it does really reward. And I don't think anybody, if you know anybody that says, oh, this is a Saki deck or whatever, I don't know what they're talking about. I actually have never heard that being said at all. I do know that this deck does have a massive fan base, and I appreciate it. I just think as a fan base, we need to start coming together and actually learning how to be more efficient with this deck, because I feel like this deck is definitely touching the same level as maybe Malice and Mitsuri Raziel. It's just not being represented well enough at the moment. So hopefully we can see more of that now with the new support. So yeah, these 3 synchros are mandatory. We also play the Snake Eyes, the new Snake Eyes boys. So Poplar is insane. It's a tuner. This thing, the combinations that you can do with these 2. Chaos Angel is Chaos Angel. Whilst we're talking about fusions, which is coming up next, we're not talking about fusions. We are about to talk about fusions. I'm going to put this down now. How it can go into the way these can combine, especially with the White Forest fusion quick play spell. Like, there are so many ways you can go this, then into this, or this, then into this. This sets up this, so you can get a pop. Like, there's so many, as I said, rewards skillful gameplay. So yeah, I'll put that as part of that pile. We play the obvious Murcielago and Sylvia, your Monster Negate and your Searcher. Non-negotiables. This is the bare minimum package that you play with Azamina fusions. And then we play the Margina, we play the Sei Azamina, and we play the Kaiju. This thing is pretty good. If you get this on board, this thing is insane as well. And this thing is pretty cool. Again, very complex in terms of like the fusion requirements and things like that, but if you're smart about it, you can make it work. And if you get this out, you can like prime yourself for Azamina in your opponent's turn, and if they expect it or don't expect it, you just suddenly shock them because it's a summoning condition. But like Cyber Dragons, you just summon it and you tribute one of their monsters. This thing's really cool. There are combos where you can end on this, just to prepare yourself for this. Normally this survives. It's very difficult to get rid of this because it can't be targeted, and it stops your opponent from targeting stuff in their graves. The last fusion that we play is Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera is Guardian Chimera. Get some draws, get some pops in your opponent's turn. It's self-explanatory. This card's really good. And then we play just for when you need to extend or when you need to find that level 4 or lower from the grave, just to get that like last bit of the puzzle for the synchro. And then maybe also increase, like there's been times where like you can summon this with this pointing to it, and then you summon like a synchro next to it, and then you get both effects where both of these increase by 700, but also you get the summon back. And this going to 26 is huge. Makes it so that it doesn't get beaten over. And then finally, I had a flex spot. It used to be SP, it used to be Celine. I do think this card is still relevant. Obviously, if you use the White Forest field spell, you can't use this because it locks you out of docks. I think this card is still, if you hand trap relevantly and you force them into a certain route, I think this card is still pretty good. I guess this is the main flex spot that could be swapped out for something. For now, I'm going to keep it at this. I do think it still has value, especially against like Habakir, Murakumo, making sure that it can't trigger activate. if you have the right cards in hand, you can survive a turn. So yeah, that is the 15 card extra deck. And this is just a suggestion for the side. It doesn't have to be this, but for the moment, I'm really enjoying for most of my decks. So this and Malice are the two decks that I'm playing at the moment. I like all 6 more Charmies in the side to be paired with Fualos when you're going first. Lancer is Lancer. And then I like thrust packages because the decks that I play do lose to single hand traps if you don't open well. So if you have the confidence of, or if you have the ability of opening Tactics Thrust, it gets you like to some of your targets, the Designator and the 2 thrust targets. So obviously if I were playing Malice, I think this would be DDG. You could swap another one of these for another target as well. Black Goats is a very cool card in this deck still, and I think it's also a very strong card in this format. But yeah, I find siding at the moment is you have to be as generic as possible. You need to cover as many bases as possible if you can. But yeah, that's the side deck for me. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. The main thing I kind of want to discuss at the end of this is that this deck is pretty good, and I do think with more representation, with more things out there for players to start like practicing with, and like maybe we can bring more people on board just so there's more of an understanding and more of like more creativity happening in terms of not just what we put in our decks in terms of plays and how we play around certain cards. If you open X, Y, and Z, what can you do if you get nibbed? And like that's the sort of things that you can actually talk about with this deck. Whereas like other decks, I open Dormouse, I can do this. I got stopped 3 times. I can still do this though, because it's just like the trajectory is like the spread is so like narrow in comparison to this. Not to put any shame on any other decks, but I do feel like the flexibility of this deck and the ceiling is very, very high. But either way, like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you enjoy the profile, and I'll see you next time.